Okay, good. Well, welcome to our inaugural lecture series at the Arcadia University's College of Global Studies, Edinburgh Centre. The next two lectures are going to be on politics. So we have Paul Anderson coming to give a little talk about the mechanics of how the Scottish Parliament works. And then in 2 weeks' time we have MSP, a member of the Scottish Parliament from the Scottish National Party, is going to come and talk about their policies and their attitudes towards Scotland and its relationship to the United Kingdom and the European Union and the world in a broader context. Paul is originally from Aberdeen, but now lives in Dunfermline, across the River Forth in Fife. Paul's a chartered librarian and spent a number of years working in libraries prior to joining the Scottish Parliament at its inception in 1999. As the Parliament's Community Outreach Manager, Paul works with underrepresented groups in order to help them engage in the parliamentary process. Paul was previously the holder of a scholarship funded by the English-speaking Union. We saw him spend a month at the United States Congress in Washington, D.C. Paul has led democracy seminars for staff at the Slovak Parliament in Bratislava in preparation for that country's accession. So, Paul, thank you for coming to talk with us.
Thank you for that introduction, Hamish. Thank you guys for coming along, and thank everyone for logging in this evening. I've been asked to give a very broad and brief overview of the Scottish Parliament. I have, as Hamish rightly said in his introduction, I've been with the Scottish Parliament since its inception in early 1999. I've had various jobs at the Parliament in that time, but they've all been public facing. So I am kind of unique in the sense I don't really deal directly with the MSPs, with the elected politicians. All my jobs have been focusing on getting real people in the real world to engage with their Parliament. My job title there, Community Outreach Manager, I think Hope says it all. It's about outreach. It's one of these kind of buzzwords that's going about the place just now, but it is really about literally taking the Parliament physically out of Holyrood, out of Edinburgh, into local communities so that ordinary people across Scotland understand and appreciate and value this. Their Parliament doesn't belong to the MSPs. As I said, what I'm going to do this evening is maybe give a 35-40 minute presentation, very broad terms, presentation about the Parliament, what it is and what it isn't. I am not going to answer any questions on the independence referendum because I cannot, I'm not allowed to. Okay, I am not a politician, no one elected me, I don't belong to any political party, and I don't even work for the MSPs. I'm not a civil servant. As you know, civil servants work for the government. I don't work for the government, I'm a parliamentary officer. Okay. So if anyone doesn't like what they've heard so far, you're free to leave now. Okay, so just let that be the understanding. Okay. Let's start off then with a brief introduction. Some basics, the ABC stuff on the Scottish Parliament. You know this, guys, I hope. Very briefly, the Scottish Parliament is not the government. We're the legislature, we make laws. Okay, that's what Parliament does. I know some countries, I think in the US, I think there's a wee bit of a grey area between the legislative branch and executive branch. In Scotland and the UK, in fact, it's absolutely crystal clear what's one and what's the other. Okay, so this talk this evening is not about the Scottish Government. It's not about policies, it's about the mechanism by which policies are brought to public focus and by which laws are made. Okay, we're led by the presiding officer. Anyone know their name? Presiding officer, there's a wee prize, you get 2 biscuits afterwards. No, okay, we'll come to that later, guys. Okay, we make laws, we know that, and we've also have a very important secondary role, and that is that we hold the government to account. That's the headquarters of the Scottish Government at Victoria Quay in Leith in Edinburgh. As you know, the government runs the country, spends the money, it's led by the First Minister. Anyone know his name?
Is that Alex Salmond?
It is Alex Salmond, well done. The First Minister Alex Salmond, and the Parliament is answerable, beg your pardon, the Scottish Government is answerable to the Parliament. To the Parliament. So there you have the very real relationship, and in that sense, the Parliament is very much the preeminent body. Okay, by the people, for the people, okay, of the people, holding the government to account. That's absolutely crucial. Okay? Just want to very briefly look at what we call the state of the parties. This is the makeup of the current Parliament. The SNP, the Scottish National Party, is the ruling party. It has an overall majority with 65 seats. The second largest party is the Labour Party with 37, and then some distance behind Conservatives and Liberal Democrats, who had a very difficult time at the last election in 2011. Greens also struggled. We have 4 independents and we have 1 presiding officer. Just a wee bit about the presiding officer. It's a lady called Tricia Marwick. Now, she was elected as an MSP for the Scottish National Party. She is elected by the other members to represent them in the chamber and to head up the Scottish Parliament. Okay? The independents, quite an interesting mix this. Previously we only had 1 independent, that was a lady called Margot MacDonald. Okay, we'll come to Margot in a few minutes. Then we had 1 MSP who became an independent for personal issues. He had to resign. He had, actually, I believe he had the whip withdrawn, the Scottish National Party whip withdrawn, so he had to become an independent. And just 2 weeks ago, we had 2 further SNP members who became independents because they objected to the policy change on the party with regards to NATO membership and nuclear weapons. So they just 2 weeks ago stepped down from membership of the party. Okay, so the SNP have lost 4, actually 5, if you include the presiding officer, okay, 5 MSPs. Okay, now this is quite an astonishing statistic because the Scottish Parliament the electoral system for the Scottish Parliament was deliberately designed to ensure as much as possible that it would result in a hung Parliament. Okay, so it would become almost impossible for any one party to have an overall majority. Okay, the idea was to encourage consensual politics. Now, in 2011, that just didn't happen. I was at a talk, but this time last year, by a former First Minister, Henry McLeish, as part of an Edinburgh University programme, and Mr McLeish said something which really stuck with me. He said, Mr Salmon changed the laws of politics in Scotland by getting an overall majority. So I don't know about Scotty, can he change the laws of physics, Captain, but Alex Salmon appears to have changed the laws of politics. He got an overall majority which just was not supposed to happen in any set of circumstances. Okay, so a majority nationalist, independent focused government. Just want quickly to run through the turnout for the Scottish Parliament elections. I don't know if you know, in 1997 there was a referendum. The then Labour government led by Tony Blair, remember him? His government published a document, a bill rather, which resulted in the referendum of 1997. The referendum asked 2 questions of the Scottish people. 1, would you like a parliament? 2, do you want that parliament to have tax-raising powers? Okay. 60% of the people, the electorate, turned out to vote in the referendum in 1997. 2 years later, more or less the same. Well, look what happened after the first session of Parliament. Not quite a collapse, but a massive dip, 10% drop in the turnout. Slight rise in 2007, and again more or less in 2007. So essentially what we're talking about is 50% of the electorate. 50%. I don't know how that sits with other countries. I'd be interested to have a chat with you about that. I'm happy to take any questions, any point on that. But that can't be healthy. You know, that's something that every right-minded politician will be concerned about. This is why the Parliament has an outreach service, is to get essentially bums on seats, okay, get people voting, okay, and then paying attention to issues that affect them. Let's look at the powers of the Scottish Parliament. Is anyone familiar with this? The 1998 Scotland. I'm sure you've all read it. I know I have. Right? You remember when you read it, right? This is an act of the Westminster Parliament. Okay? 1998, so before the Scottish Parliament was established. This is the legal foundation stone of the Scottish Parliament. And if you go to section 1, subsection 1, it says, so part 1, section 1, subsection 1, there shall be a Scottish Parliament. Okay? So it's in the statute book, folks, it's going to happen. There shall be a Scottish Parliament. Now, what the Act does is it spells out the powers of the Scottish Parliament. It tells us what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. The areas we're allowed to get laws in are called So I'll come back to that in a second. Just a wee aside here. This is a copy of the Scotland Act as signed by Tony Blair and given to Donald Dewar, who was the first First Minister of Scotland. And a nice wee message, terrible handwriting by the way, isn't he? It says, "It was a struggle, it may always be hard, but it was worth it. Scotland and England together on equal terms." And we actually have this actual hard copy on display in an exhibition, a permanent exhibition in the Parliament. Okay? So I don't have one of the scribblings by Tony Blair. And back then, yeah, it still cost £12, £11.95. Okay, so no price increase in the intervening 14 years. Right, what was I saying? The areas in which we're allowed to pass laws are called the devolved areas, devolution devolved areas. Okay? Some of them are very obvious, like law and home affairs, tourism, planning, health. We know we've got separate health service in Scotland, housing. Some are less obvious, such as local government, statistics, public registers and records. All these areas, the Act tells us we can pass laws in. Okay? The other side of that coin, though, is the areas where we're not allowed to pass laws. These are called the reserved matters. Okay? Areas that affect everybody in Scotland on a daily basis, but only the Westminster Parliament in London may pass laws in these areas. Okay? So the first thing I do when I talk with voluntary groups or charities who are looking to engage with the Parliament on a particular issue, the first thing I say to them is, find out, is your issue devolved or is it reserved? Because if it's reserved, really you're better directing your energies towards your MP in Westminster. Because the Scottish Parliament, although they can debate the issue, although they can table parliamentary motions on an issue, they cannot pass laws on a reserved issue. Only the Westminster Parliament can do that. Okay. Now, again, in 14 years of public-facing work with the Parliament, I think I can quite safely say that if you were to stop 100 people in Princes Street on a Saturday and offer them a £10 note and say, I will give you this £10 note if you can tell me the difference between devolved and reserved areas, I can guarantee you that 90% plus would not be able to tell you the difference. People are still unaware of the difference. They've got a fuzzy kind of idea, they might kind of skirt around the edges, but if you were to nail them on that issue, they wouldn't be able to define the difference. Okay, and that I think that's worrying after 14 years of devolution. Okay. And these are the issues, of course, that the SNP, the nationalist government, is looking to take back into Scottish control. So devolved and reserved issues. There has been a recent amendment to the Scotland Act 1998, and it's this. The Scotland Act 2012. Okay, it's my hard copy here, terrible quality scan. And what that did was, it increased the powers of the Scottish Parliament. This is through the agreement of the Westminster government, who said, yes, we will give these further powers to the Scottish Parliament, the Scottish government. And the areas of their landfill tax, stamp duty, borrowing powers, very important, allowing the Scottish Cabinet, the Scottish Finance Secretary, to borrow more money. Okay? Other things which are more kind of emotive, more kind of media friendly, if you like, drink drive limits and national speed limit air weapons, okay, which previously were reserved to Westminster, but which have now been passed to Scotland. A couple of curiosities here. When you're looking closely at what's still reserved, I look at my schedule here and I see that time is a reserved matter. Anybody tell me how do they think an abstract concept such as time might be reserved? How might that manifest itself in a practical sense? Anyone?
Daylight savings.
Yeah, absolutely, spot on. Daylight saving. Time scales, time zones, and the subject matter of the Summertime Act 1972. The calendar, units of time, the date of Easter. Okay? So we're not allowed to come up with our own Scottish hour, which is 56 minutes or whatever. Okay? Another one is outer space. And by that we mean regulation of activities in outer space. So you're not going to have a Scottish moon base, right? You're not going to have a Scottish space shuttle fueled by iron brew, because it's a reserved issue. Okay, so the Act ain't going to happen. Okay. So again, very important, I think, that people, okay, it's an evolutionary thing, but people need to develop over time their awareness of what we can and can't do in this country. Okay. Let's look now at MSPs, members of the Scottish Parliament. Can I ask, has anyone had direct, I know we're from overseas, has anyone had direct contact with MSPs in Scotland in your time here? Yeah? Do you mind me asking which one?
I don't remember.
You don't remember the name? Edmund Agreement. Okay.
One of the 15 Conservatives.
One of the 15 Conservatives, okay. In Scotland, remember that electoral system that I described a short while back that's designed to ensure that we can never have an overall majority, but they actually happen. In Scotland, when we vote in the Scottish Parliament election, we have 2 ballots. Okay? Your first is your constituency vote, where it's first past the post. There are 73 constituencies across Scotland, which elects 1 member per constituency on a first past the post basis, so 73 members straight away. Your second ballot is your proportional representation ballot, or your PR ballot. Okay? Now, what that does is it elects 7 MSPs for each of the 8 parliamentary regions. 7 times 8 is 56. 56 plus 73 is 129. So we are in the Lothians region. Okay? So everyone here, okay, is represented, everyone in Scotland is represented by 8 MSPs, whether you like it or not. Okay? You're 1 constituency member and you're 7 regional members. So look at the regions. You've got Highlands and Islands, which is, if you look at the geography, it's amazing. It goes from the Mull of Kintyre right up to Unst and Shetland, which should be up here somewhere, you know that. It's nearer to Oslo than it is Edinburgh, okay? The nearest cinema is Oslo, right? Okay? It's a huge, it's the largest, geographically, it's the largest parliamentary constituency or region west of the Ural Mountains, okay? So you've got 7 regional MSPs covering that huge geography, okay? Where I live currently, I live in Dunfermline in Fife, so that's mid-Scotland and Fife. We have North East Scotland. Glasgow, the city of Glasgow, because its population is a region on its own, so it has 7 regional MSPs representing the 1 city. You have South of Scotland, you have Central, you have the West of Scotland, and you have Lothian. Okay? 8 regions, 7 regional members per region means 56. Okay? Now again, very worryingly, very depressingly, if you stop people in the street and say, how many MSPs have you got? I would suggest a very high proportion are going to say to you 1. And when you tell them, when you explain that they've got 8, and I'm speaking on almost 14 years of experience, I guarantee the majority will say, well, I never voted for 8. Nobody told me. And it's all I can do to bite my tongue and say, did you vote? Oh, no, I voted. Right, did you remember going with 2 ballots? Maybe. Then you should know you've got 8 MSPs representing you, because if you don't, then what you've done is you've gone into that ballot box and you've not really thought through what you're doing. You've not thought, what is this going to result in? Why have I got 2 ballot papers here? Okay? So it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. We still don't take it seriously enough. 50% turnout, of that 50%, who bothers to think through that they've got 8? Even now, I speak to businessmen, I speak to people in charge of charities and voluntary groups. They still don't know they've got 8 MSPs representing them. It's very, very, very disappointing. Okay. So let's look at who they are then. Well, if we all live in this constituency, okay, which is Edinburgh Central, by the way, we are represented by these 8 members on the screen here. Marco Biaggi is our constituency MSP for Edinburgh Central. The other 7 are the list or regional members for the Lothians region. There's a very good, very broad spectrum there. Okay? You've got Marco, who's SNP, David and Gavin, who are Scottish Conservative and Unionist. You've got 3 Labour MSPs, Kezia, Sarah and Neil. You've got a Green. There are 2 Green MSPs, one in the Lothian region, one in the Glasgow City region. Okay? There's Alison, and you have Margot MacDonald, who's an independent. Now, in the first session of the Parliament from 1999 to 2003, Margot was an SNP member, and she fell out of the party leadership and she resigned from the party. So since then, she has been independent. She keeps getting elected. Very, very popular figure, Margot. Very, how can I put this? Got the kind of common touch, if you like. You know, she's very, very popular with real people in the real world, as it were. Margot has a very controversial bill before the Parliament. It's an issue which crops up, and I think it may be an issue in some American states. Anyone know what it is, guys? No? It's the right to dignity in death, assisted dying. Yeah. Margot tragically has Parkinson's disease, and she's very badly affected with it. And she has, I think there's another bill. Could you confirm, Gavin, there's a bill before the Parliament? Or she's just drawing it up currently? Right. She did submit the bill a number of years ago when the Parliament voted it down. But I think if it isn't before the Parliament, she's going to introduce it this session. And it seems that there's more and more support for it. So very, very controversial issue. And hardly a day goes by on Radio Scotland, Good Morning Scotland, which is a flagship current affairs programme, and the national radio station where the issue isn't mentioned. So Margot, despite being an independent, very, very high profile. Okay. So, imagine for a second you have an issue or a problem, okay? And you want to write to your MSP. Who would you write to? Who would you contact that's that aid?
I don't know. I suppose the one I elect directly. Unless I didn't vote for that.
Okay. Okay. Right. Anyone else? Who would you contact out of those 8?
I would say the constituency.
The constituency. Okay.
I would also say constituency.
Yeah. Okay. I would say, guys, that's a typical response. Yeah. What happens is, remember I said earlier, you've got 8 of them representing you. Okay. I was a bit worried and disappointed there because no one said all 8. Okay. Because you're paying 8 salaries. Okay. All 8 of them represent you. Why not all 8? You're only using 1/8 of your power and influence by contacting just your constituency member. What do these guys do all day? Sit at the back of the chamber playing cards? No, they're there to represent you also. Okay, and this is, I'm not having a go, guys. It's just what I find all the time. People just don't understand. All these people represent you. Now, there's a wee protocol, however. See if you're a young person with particularly interested in green issues, environmental issues, recycling, say. Okay, which one of those might you think, oh right, that's the person over here. Who?
Alison.
Yeah, we're going to go with Alison, aren't we? Green Party, of course we are. The protocol says, if you contact Alison, Alison is obliged to write to your constituency MSP to let them know that you have contacted her. So she will email or write to Marco saying, Dear Marco, just to let you know, I have been contacted by Joe Bloggs and I will be taking this issue forward on his or her behalf. It doesn't work the other way. Marco is under no obligation to write to the other 7 saying, just to let you know, I'll be taking this forward on their behalf. Okay. Well, that's a key point I make to the charities and voluntary groups I work with. Contact all 8. Because if you can get them on board, then that's 8 times the influence you have. If you've got a problem with your local authority, you've got a problem with the police, a problem with the health board, isn't it better to get all 8 chasing them up on your behalf than just the one? Okay, it's a no-brainer, guys. So let's very briefly run through Marco's job, and the job of any MSP, in fact. They nominate and elect the First Minister. They make laws in relation to devolved issues, okay? Health, education, social work, transport, etc. They deal with matters raised by constituents, okay, you guys. They scrutinise the government through a very powerful committee system, and they debate reserved matters of relevance to Scotland. In a nutshell, the job of an MSP. Very quickly looking at a sitting week in the Parliament, Mondays and Fridays are constituency days. Okay, so they're in their offices in the Highlands or down south, wherever, dealing with constituency casework. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're at Holyrood. The mornings, it's committees, the afternoon, they're in the chamber. Okay, that's recently changed. The new presiding officer, Tricia Marwick, has got a very, very high-profile reform agenda, and that was one of her reforms, changing the sitting pattern. Okay. The committee system. Now, very, very influential committees in Scotland. We have, in my, again, almost 14 years, I've given talks to legislators, lawyers, academics from literally all over the world who've come to Scotland to see how our committee system works. And I have to say, it's the envy of Westminster. I mean, they will openly tell you that they look in our committee system with amazement, really, because it's so modern. There are 2 types, broadly speaking, 2 types of committees. The mandatory committees, which are fixed. They're always going to be there. Okay, they're in a rule book called the standing orders. There they are. There. Public audit, equal opportunities, European finance, public petitions. Interesting one that. Standards, procedures, and public appointments, and subordinate legislation. The interesting ones, if I can put it that way, are the subject committees. Okay, if you read the blurb there, established for the duration of the current parliamentary session. Okay, so they may be reviewed after the 4 or 5 year term. Remits reflect those of the government departments and ministers. So, there's a Justice Committee. The job of the Justice Committee is to keep an eye on the Justice Department of the government. The Justice Minister, Ken McCaskill, and his department. Okay? The Health Committee will keep an eye on Alec Neil, the Health Minister, and his department. So we shadow the government. Okay? The Local Government Committee will keep an eye on the Local Government Minister and his department. Okay, that's how it works. Remember I said that 2 key roles of the Parliament were to pass laws and hold the government to account? That's how we hold the government to account, through our very powerful committee system. Let's look at the convenerships. Broadly indicative of the makeup of the parties. SNP chair 10, Labour 5, Conservative 1. Lib Dems and Greens don't have enough members to chair a committee. Okay. Now, apologies for anyone watching in over the web, you will not see this, and we can just about see here. These are the committee conveners currently. So in yellow for SNP, chair 10, Conservatives chair Economy, Energy and Tourism. But 2 or 3 months ago we had a very high profile guy from America who gave evidence to that committee. Anyone know who he was? I'll give you a clue, very bad hairdo.
Oh, it was Trump with his golf.
It was Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump. Donald Trump, of course it was, yeah. On the wind farm, there's planning for wind farms. His planning application for the golf course near Aberdeen, that's right, he was ruling against wind farms, yeah. Okay. Interesting one here, the referendum bill. We'll come on to that in a second, okay. Chaired by, you won't be surprised to learn, an SNP member. Okay. The role of committees, very briefly, let's get on to this, guys. They conduct inquiries, you know that. They scrutinise legislation, okay. In Scotland, we're a unicameral system. Okay, 1 chamber. We don't have a revising chamber, unlike Westminster, which is a House of Lords. So in effect, it's the committees that generate the legislation, okay, they scrutinise the bill, and it's the chamber, which is in effect the revising chamber. It's quite unusual, okay. This one's very important. In Scotland, our committees are very powerful, very influential, because they have the power to initiate their own legislation. And they can't do that at Westminster, okay? And that makes Scottish Parliament committees incredibly powerful, okay? A committee bill has got a good chance of becoming law, okay? And MPs in Westminster, they were very impressed by that, okay? Is that the same in the States, guys, in Canada? Tell me, do you know? Have you committees that can introduce bills?
Committees can introduce bills,
yes, yeah.
But more often than not, it's individual members or like a coalition.
Okay, okay. In Scotland, talking about members introducing bills, every MSP has a quota of 2 members' bills over a parliamentary session. Most don't use up that quota, of course, okay? But when you're sworn in, in effect, there's your 2 bullets, if you like, okay? Don't spend it all in one shop, okay? You've got 2 bills, or you're allowed to submit up to 2 members' bills, okay? And some have become law, okay? They scrutinise the government spending plans, they scrutinise parliamentary procedures and MSP's conduct, and they hold ministers to account. So in a nutshell, the job, I mean, that is pretty fairly typical of what committees do in legislatures around the world. Okay. The big issue, right guys, what's on the agenda? I didn't need to type in anything else, just put that guy's face up. Okay. The big issue obviously is
Referendum.
a referendum on Scottish independence, of course it is. Yeah. This chap here, anyone recognise him? David Cameron, Prime Minister of Great Britain, and on his right, Alex Salmond, First Minister of Scotland. This happened in Edinburgh just literally a couple of weeks ago. It's now been called the Edinburgh Agreement. And what it is, it's signing of the agreement which will lead to the referendum in 2014. Okay, so I've got, for balance, I've got the independence movement there and the Better Together campaign. The independence movement didn't have a nice logo or what have you. I thought Mel Gibson would do. Okay, that is the big issue on the radar just now. Every single day in the newspapers, in the radio and television, you will have a mention of the independence referendum. Okay, that's going to happen. Okay. Remember a couple of minutes ago I showed you there was a referendum bill committee. Yeah. The remit is to scrutinise the legislation that will enable a referendum on Scottish independence to take place in 2014. Okay, the Edinburgh Agreement says there will be one question: do you want there to be a Scottish or worse to that effect? Do you want Scotland to become independent? It will be legally binding. Both governments will adhere by the result. 16 and 17-year-olds will get the vote, most unusually. Okay. And the Electoral Commission will oversee the process. Okay, that's the Edinburgh Agreement, the contract, if you like, between the two sides. Okay.
That's the Scottish, the UK, the Scottish Electoral Commission.
UK Electoral Commission.
UK
Electoral Commission. Okay. So this is where we're at. This is going to happen almost certainly in October 2014. I strongly suspect it will be held on the 700th anniversary of the Battle of Bannockburn. Okay, Bannockburn? Yeah, Stirling Bridge is 1297, wasn't it? Okay, and again, if you want to go back to the Mel Gibson thing, I can remind you of Bannockburn. That's a Robert the Bruce at Bannockburn, but that's another movie, I'm sure. Okay, so playing to the kind of heartstrings here, the emotive argument, and why not? So that's where we're at. Again, I will reiterate, and I have to be honest, I can't take any questions, and I'm not allowed to express an opinion, not live, online anyway, about the issues, the policy issues. But that's where we're at in terms of what Scottish policy, that is the issue. Nothing else, everything else is seen through that prism right now. Okay, what's going to happen in 2 years' time? Is it worth investing in X, Y, Z? What's going to happen after autumn 2014? Okay, it all pivots on that. Guys, that has been a gallop through the Scottish Parliament, what it is, what it isn't, how it works. I hope that wasn't too befuddling, it wasn't meant to be. I'm more than happy to take any questions if anyone has one.
I have a question.
Sure.
You said that the Parliament is designed to be hung, so there's no majority. Like how was it designed? Could you just talk about like what type of measures they had in place to try to prevent that?
Yeah, sure. Remember I mentioned the electoral system. Where are we? Yeah. The electoral system is based on a Dutch system called the De Hond system. Now what happens is the number of votes each regional MSP gets, okay, each party gets, and that's what it's a party list, it's not an MSP. The parties choose who's at the top of their list, the parties choose that. Okay? The number of MSPs they get allocated, okay, is influenced by, say in the North East there are 9 constituencies. Okay? If Labour won, just for the sake of argument, all 9 constituencies, then their list vote would carry less weight. Okay? So the SNP would get more seats if Labour won more constituencies and vice versa. Okay? So I've not explained it terribly well, but it's a system of kind of almost weighting the votes for the party, and the weight is affected by how many constituencies they win. I'll give an example. There's an MSP called Mark MacDonald, MSP, North East. He was elected last year, and Mark was 5th on his party list, way down the SNP list, and he was not expected to win, okay, or to be elected. So he turned up at the count in jeans and trainers, just quite scruffy actually, you know, he would tell you this himself. And when the returning officer said to him, "Oh, by the way, you've been elected, you better get smartened up," he had to phone his mum and say, come here with my suit please, because I've got to accept this speech shortly. Such was the overwhelming number of votes that the SNP got. Okay, so the first 4, the top of the list will almost certainly get elected. Okay, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, highly unlikely. Such was the overwhelming number of votes at SNP. Okay, that they couldn't ignore the fact, even though they did get a number of seats in the constituencies in the North East, okay, they also got a large list number as well. It just wasn't expected.
It's got something to do with the Liberal Democrat collapse. Actually, not let's talk but there was the Liberal Democrats, due to a number of policy decisions, lost a lot of the student vote, supporting tuition fees, forming an alliance with the Conservatives down in England. And Scotland, I'm sure you've discovered, is to the left politically and kind of culturally. So when the Liberal Democrats aligned themselves with the Conservatives, they lost huge popularity in Scotland. So there was a massive collapse in the Liberal Democrat vote, and then it was kind of interesting to see which way they'd go. Would they go with Labour? Would they go with the SNP? And they decided to go with the SNP. So that resulted in a massive skewing of a system that was not expecting such a collapse in one party's support.
I don't think it's fair to say that was a significant factor as well. Yeah.
How do they go about assigning list members to different regions?
Yeah, okay. It's up to the parties themselves. The parties decide who goes on their list and the order in which they're ranked on the list, which is a party issue rather than a parliament or government issue.
And once they choose the number of people on that list, and once it's determined who will become an MSP, how do they decide which constituencies they represent?
Well, again, it's up to the individual party members to develop relationships within the constituencies and to be elected. They'll have internal elections within the constituency. Very often it's local councillors who put themselves forward because they're known in the local party. It's not unknown to have MSPs stand on both the constituency and the regional list. Again, so a number of people have expressed concern about that. It should be either or. But you can still stand as in the constituency vote and on the regional list.
Can you explain why that's a problem?
Well, it's a problem because some people feel that you should get one chance, and if you don't get into the constituency first past the post, you've been elected on the list. You're almost
guaranteed.
Yeah, it's guaranteed, and some people on both sides have argued that this isn't very fair. That you're giving people two chances. I mean, there are some members who aren't terribly happy with the list system anyway. I mean, it's a matter of public record.
And is the representation of the list members usually proportional to how people vote in the individual regions? So like looking at the MSPs you showed us for Edinburgh, is that proportionate to how Edinburgh voted?
Broadly, yes, but remember I said the number, how the constituencies in the region fall will influence how many parties, how many seats that other parties get. So I'm looking here, looking at this, because you've no list members in the SNP, I would expect the SNP won most of the constituencies in the Lothian region because they got no list members. So really effectively, the more constituencies you win, the less list seats you'll get. That's put in very broad terms. Okay, that's the design of the system. Okay.
Is there a formula?
There is a formula. It's called the DeHont, D-E-H-O-N-T. Look it up, guys. I mean, literally, it's a mathematical formula. Do not ask me to tell you what it is. Okay.
You'll be one of those people that walk along the street and I say, tell me the DeHont formula. You're voting.
Yeah, most people, thank goodness, do not know the DeHont formula. That's the system which is based.
Yeah, just one question. Is it correct that you can serve as both an MSP and an MP concurrently?
It is correct. You can serve as an MP, an MSP and a local authority councillor at the same time. And we have had people doing that. I believe in the current session there is at least one member who is serving as a councillor, a local authority councillor. But I think by convention in session 2, that was 2003 to 2007, we had in the first term, 1990 to 2003, we had, I think it was 9 MSPs who were also MPs, but they either stepped down during the first session as an MP, or at the end of the first session of the Scottish Parliament, they relinquished their MP seat. So it's just by convention. As I understand it, there's no obligation, but we have no what we call dual mandate MSPs. Okay, but we do have a chap who's an MP and a councillor.
Can you speak to the West Lothian question?
I can. What do you know about the West Lothian question, guys? Okay, this is really the kind of heart of the independence argument. It's so-called the West Lothian question because the MP at the time who raised this was a chap called Tam DL, and he raised it, but it was about 30 years ago now, isn't it? And Tam DL, he was the MP for West Lothian, hence the West Lothian question. And the question he raised was, why should Scottish MPs be allowed to vote on matters which impact only England and Wales, Northern Ireland, when English MPs are not allowed to vote on matters which impact Scotland. This is when the proposals were made for the 1979 referendum, is that right, Hamish? Yeah? Okay. So the West Lothian question, the fairness and the equality almost of the role of MPs, okay? The proposals were for Home Rule, as it was called back then, that English MPs would not be allowed to vote on issues affecting Scotland, but Scottish MPs at Westminster would be able to vote on issues affecting English constituencies. Okay, that's very kind of rough and ready, the West Lothian question. And it's still absolutely valid. Okay, anything else? Okay, well thank you very much folks for your time. As I said, I hope you'll not be fuddled, and I'm more than happy to provide a copy of this. In fact, it's on your PC and your laptop, so I'm sure Hamish will be able to get that to you anytime you wish. Okay?
Thank you to all. That was a complex political system.